Happy National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Was it good for you? I know it was very, very good for federal government workers, given that it's a full statutory holiday for them. I wonder how many were reflecting on reconciliation. Or given the glorious summertime weather we're getting in the GTA at least, I wonder how many were out on the golf course earlier today. As for the vast majority of us schleppers, well, it was just another day at the office, I reckon. I guess we'll have to reflect on truth and reconciliation on our own dime when we get off work. Say, since the Prime Minister had the day off, I wonder how Justin Trudeau reflected upon truth and reconciliation this year. We all know how he reflected upon this solemn occasion when the holiday, well, at least a holiday for some, was first incorporated back in 2021. In fact, folks, I think we even have some video footage of Justin's heartfelt remembrance.
Beach blanket bingo, beach blanket bingo, beach blanket bingo. That's the name of the day.
Oops, that wasn't actually the former part-time drama teacher Justin Trudeau channeling Frankie Avalon. Even so, I do ponder if the surf was up on Tofino Beach earlier today. Anyway, I was also wondering if I just committed a future crime vis-a-vis making an inappropriate comment on anything and all things Indigenous. I do not jest, although I wish I were. Last week in the House of Commons, NDP MP Leah Gazan tabled a private member's bill called C413. From the NDP's website, here are the details. For starters, Bill C413 is, quote, aimed at combating residential school denialism and stopping the harm it causes to survivors, their families, and First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. If passed, this bill would add to the criminal code the offense of willfully promoting hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, justifying, or downplaying the harm caused by the residential school system in Canada, end quote. Wow, a criminal code offense for, say, questioning the validity of statistical data that might not even be accurate? That sounds really serious, don't you think? But Ms. Gazan, the Member of Parliament for Winnipeg Centre, is adamant that no thought crimes regarding Indigenous matters shall be tolerated in our stolen land of Canada if Bill C-413 becomes law. Quote, if the government is serious about reconciliation, then they need to protect survivors and their families from hate. The residential school system was a genocide designed to wipe out Indigenous cultures, languages, families, and heritage. To downplay, deny, or justify it is cruel, harmful, and hateful. This should have no place in Canada, end quote. Funny that, I thought censorship had no place in Canada, but in these increasingly censorious times, our dominion is evolving into a realm in which Big Brother Trudeau and his useful idiots are watching you and penalizing you. You know, my beloved boss, Ezra Levant, he predicted that 2024 would be the year of censorship, and wow, Ezra has proven to be a modern-day Cassandra. And in this respect, think of Bill C-413 as an Indigenous-themed addendum to the most censorious legislation in, well, basically the history of the Western world. That would be Bill C-63, aka the Online Harms Act. As Ezra warned back in February, Bill C-63 will amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to stipulate that online hate speech is discrimination, and the bill will empower people to file confidential complaints if the commission thinks the individuals might be subjected to intimidation. That's right, you do not even get to know the identity of your accuser. Oh, and if you find out who that person is and name him or her, you'll face further penalties. It gets worse. Those who engage in hate speech could face life imprisonment. It would also allow judges to put you under house arrest with an ankle bracelet and tell you who you can or cannot talk to on suspicion that you might commit a hate offense. You know, the sci-fi flick Minority Report, complete with its pre-crimes unit, well, it's quickly becoming a current-day reality in Canada, isn't it? Meanwhile, so-called victims of hate speech could be compensated up to $20,000. With standalone hate crimes being added to the criminal code, the federal government would be entitled to an additional $50,000 per complaint. Wow, that's a service charge that would even make the shysters running Ticketmaster blush. And because the odious Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act is back, well, expect that also to be weaponized against dissenting Canadian expressions. Bill C-63 is equal parts appalling and terrifying. And now we have Bill C-413. And in both cases, it's all about clamping down on those expressing contrarian opinions or else. Indeed, I shall quote directly from the private member's bill, which is hell-bent to eradicate the so-called willful promotion of hatred directed at Indigenous peoples. Quote, everyone who, by communicating statements other than in private conversation, willfully promotes hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, downplaying, or justifying the Indian residential school system in Canada, or by misrepresenting facts relating to it, A, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or B, is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction, end quote. Well, thank goodness that this bill does not apply to private conversations. That would seem to indicate that the Gestapo won't be listening in on our phone conversations and monitoring our emails. Well, not yet at least. As always, the devil is in the details. First and foremost, what is the benchmark for Indigenous hatred?
It's the news event of the year. Canada's most controversial premier sits down with Canada's most controversial journalist, and everything is on the table. Come watch Ezra Levant one-on-one with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in front of a live studio audience in Calgary. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's held back. Questions that would make Justin Trudeau invoke martial law. Answers that will make Stephen Guilbeault pee his pants. You're not going to want to miss this one. But you have to be there in person at the Rebel News Live mega conference in Calgary on October the 5th. Tickets are limited, so drop everything and go to rebelnewslive.com right now. Special discounted prices for Patriots and special extra high prices if you're with the CBC. Go to rebelnewslive.com now.